Hello, I'm Blaster Pro, and welcome back to Propology 101. Today, we're going to be breaking down the Empire Strikes Back DH-17. Now, one of my favorite scenes in a movie is the Hoth scenes during Empire Strikes Back. And this is actually where we get the very first Empire Strikes Back DH-17. Hoth Rebel troopers are carrying them. Just like the A New Hope version, the Empire Strikes Back version is also based on the Sterling submachine gun and uses many of the components of the Sterling submachine gun, but a little bit different than they did for A New Hope. In A New Hope, we went over, there were lots of wood pieces and stuff like that, but they did use a lot of real, actual Sterling parts that were popped on. In the Empire Strikes Back case, most, if not all of those parts are castings, resin and fiberglass castings of original Sterling parts. For example, on the trigger and grip assembly, you will see they used clay around the trigger guard and trigger before they cast them to reinforce and make those spots thicker. They also used the magazine well with a cut down magazine that they did not use on the A New Hope version. Now we can get to the parts that they did use pretty much the same. They used the front and rear sights, they used the butt cap, and they used the butt cap release. And they also at times used a mock-up of the butt cap release. So you'll see both of those when you study Empire Strikes Back DH-17s. Also, like the New Hope version, they use the single point scope. If you want to learn a little bit more about the single point scope, in episode 2, when I talked about the A&H version, I talked a little bit more about the single point scope. Just like with the Sterling parts, the single point scope is also a casting of an original scope, and they cast the scope rings, the 1-inch scope rings, the same scope rings they used in A New Hope, they also used for Empire Strikes Back, but they're cast onto the scope, and you'll notice that there's no thumb screws to tighten it down. For example, these guys right here, they don't exist on the Empire Strikes Back version. Moving on, the scope mount is also very much different. For one reason, it's longer. It's almost 3/4 the length of the blaster. It goes completely out into this area. Like this is the New Hope version, it stays nice and short. But it also, like the New Hope version, incorporates the front and rear sights of the Sterling. And of course, it's round and not square like the New Hope version. The main body is also just a piece of pipe they cut to resemble the Sterling receiver tube. You'll notice that the grip and trigger assembly is set back on the DH-17s compared to the Sterling submachine gun. And you'll also notice the ejection port is a slightly different shape. So that pretty much shows us that they did not use an actual Sterling tube for this. They just made a pipe mock-up. Now, greeblies, there are 6 button-type greeblies. There are 5 on the left side and 1 on the right side. There are also 2 piston halves from the Revell visible engine kit. Part numbers are 67 and 68. Also from the Revell engine, there are 2 sections of camshaft, one on the left and one on the right. That is part number 40. There are also 2 greeblies on the left and right hand sides just above the trigger, and those 2 greeblies are from the Revell F4E Phantom II model kit number 0182, and those part numbers are 97 and or 98. The missile greebly on the right-hand side of the DH-17, kind of on the back side, back near the back of it, that's probably also from the Phantom II model kit. Now there are 2 square greeblies sitting on top of the magazine well and 2 mystery greeblies in the front and back of the mag well, and also 2 more square greeblies on the left and right hand side of the rear sight. Now the barrel, we talked about for the New Hope version, that this barrel is very obviously inspired by the BSA Trials submachine gun. It may possibly have been for New Hope and for Empire Strikes Back. that they may have used a casting of an original. Those guns never made it to production, so any prototypes may have just kind of gone out into wherever, and they may have ended up at Bapty, where a lot of the prop firearms were rented for Star Wars came from, and they may have had one of those laying around and made a casting saying, hey, this is a pretty cool thing. But that's definitely where that barrel design comes from. I hope you enjoyed this quick breakdown of the Empire Strikes Back DH-17.